Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Game Developers Conference. Innovation is a critical component of what's next for the game industry, especially as we peer into the next generation of handhelds and consoles. Since the days of the Game & Watch series, innovation has been Nintendo's trump card. As demonstrated by his GDC keynote last year, Nintendo President Satoru Iwata's passion as a game developer first and foremost is a key ingredient in provoking that innovation and bucking conventional trends. This year, he's back to share, developer to developer, his roadmap for what's next. And you'll see where heart meets a very savvy mind at Nintendo. Everyone, please join me in welcoming home Satoru Iwata.
Thank you so much for giving me the honor of speaking before you again this year. In my job, I have to talk to a lot of people. But as you all know, since I still have a heart of a gamer, I have most fun talking to you. Once upon a time, way back in the 1980s, a company became #1 because its products meant fun to young people. But then, in the 1990s, a bigger company with a bigger brand name and bigger budget took away the #1 spot. Fortunately, the first company also had another line of products that let it remain popular and profitable. This company used that thread to reconsider its strategy and think how it could regain overall leadership. And this is what it decided. It would redefine its own business and expand its market beyond current core users. Could this strategy work? Well, we already know the answer. The answer is yes. Because that first company, Pepsi, has returned to #1 in its industry, displacing Coke. Pepsi stopped asking, how can we sell more cola? Instead, it started asking, what else do people want to drink? Today, Pepsi is #1 in bottled water. It is #1 in sports drinks. It is #1 in health drinks. And of course, it remains #1 in the snacks business that is used to maintain profitability while they executed their disruptive strategy. As every game developer understands, the three basic food groups are Fritos, Cheetos, and Doritos. I'm here today to share some stories about Nintendo. But I begin with a story about Pepsi because it demonstrates how thinking differently and holding strongly to your strategy can disrupt an entire industry and in a good way. For some time, we have believed the game industry is ready for disruption, not just from Nintendo, but from all game developers. It is what we all need to expand our audience, and it is what we all need to expand our imaginations. Several years ago, when I began talking about reaching out to casual gamers and non-gamers, few people listened. Today, Nintendo DS is succeeding in disrupting the handheld market. In fact, most industry growth last year came from just this one product line. Now, people are listening more closely. I know many of you smiled when we demonstrated Nintendo's at GDC last year, but I'm sure not many of you believe it could sell 6 million copies around the world in less than a year. But the success of DS is not based on just one game. It is a story of several new kinds of software creating brand new players. Let me explain how disruption is working for us. Most of you are very familiar with the American market, so please let me share some information about Japan. When it launched in 2001, PlayStation 2 sold 6 million units in its first 21 months. Soon after, our Game Boy Advance did even better, reaching 6 million in 20 months. But Nintendo DS is selling at much faster pace than any game system in Japanese history. We have reached sales of 6 million systems in just 14 months. And this number would be far higher if production could keep up demand. In part, the DS success is due to how we redefine better technology with unique hardware features. But more importantly, the disruption of Nintendo DS comes from how software takes advantage of the hardware. Over the last year, no software has created more discussion or more surprise than our brain games. The first brain training, which launched 10 months ago, has sold 1.97 million units. Second brain training, which only launched the last week of last year, has already sold over 1.8 million units. I have been asked many times how we decided to develop these games. So I thought maybe this is the first story I should share with you today. Where did this idea come from? I'm sure you can guess. It started where all great creative ideas begin, from a board of directors. When Atsushi Asada was a member of our executive committee, he complained that he knew no one his age who played video games. Because Japan is an aging society, he thought a game design just for seniors might work. I agreed it was a good start, but I said it might be a mistake to target only seniors. Instead, maybe something that would appeal to other users as well. This meeting occurred just after the E3 show 2 years ago, a very busy time for us. We are finalizing the Nintendo DS hardware, as well as preparing DS launch games. Even so, I asked each of our 4 main development groups to nominate a few people to serve on a task force. Here they are. Some of them did not have much experience making games, so I got to play the role of professor, talking to them not just about games, but about overall product planning. The goal of the task force was to invent a game whose appeal would include everyone from youngsters to baby boomers to seniors. Our early meetings were just brainstorms and didn't produce any solid ideas. But at that time, people in Japan were beginning to read a new book and do its brain exercises. I noticed this and thought it might be a good game idea. Even Mr. Mori, our chief financial officer, was doing the exercises himself and convinced me to go forward. Then I consulted with Mr. Miyamoto, and when he got excited too, I asked the task force to tackle the job. Several of them said that just exercising a brain might not be enough. Could there be a way for players to measure brain age? I thought this was a great idea. People would be eager to compete their scores. But in fact, no work at all could begin until we came to agreement with the author, Dr. Ryuta Kawashima. Since we were both about the same age, I decided to try to meet with him myself. His schedule was very busy, but he agreed he could find just 1 hour on just one day, the very day that the DS was launching in Japan. Not only was his university a long distance from our offices, but the meeting itself lasted not 1 hour but 3. We showed him a prototype brain training software and explained how his work might translate to our media. He was enthused, and we started exchanging ideas. The doctor offered to demonstrate evidence on how the prototype software was stimulating brain activity. He asked if he could borrow one of the team members I had brought along from Nintendo. I said, certainly. You might find this unbelievable, but his assistant then entered with something that looked like a ball with the wires attached to it. And then he turned it upside down and placed it on my team member's head. It looks like a sci-fi movie from the 1950s. The doctor showed that he could determine that the prototype game was changing the amount of blood moving across the surface of the brain. This was an important moment for all of us. I'm sure some people at Nintendo wondered how I could spend so much time on the kind of meeting on the very day of the DS launch. But I think it turned out to be a good idea. Meanwhile, back at Nintendo, we also benefited from some good timing. Internally, we have one team we call the Development Environmental Group. They had just finished a library of tools for voice and sound recognition for DS. Simultaneously, work on handwriting recognition was also in progress. When they began this work, we all thought these functions would be useful for the DS someday, but we had no real idea how. Then, suddenly, it seemed to Mr. Miyamoto and me they would be a perfect match for this brain game. By now, I admit I was getting very enthusiastic about the project. But at first, I don't remember that the development team felt quite the same way. I assembled a group of 9 people and told them that since this wasn't a very complicated programming, they should be able to finish the first game in just 90 days. And that includes the year-end holiday period. I could tell they were not happy, but at least with a such short schedule, they couldn't waste much time complaining. My bigger concern was how the market would react, beginning with retailers. Few people inside Nintendo believed they would place very big orders. The game was just too different from what they knew. Maybe it wasn't even a game at all. So, at this point, one member of the sales team suggested a new rule. When our salesman showed the software to retailers, even before business was discussed, the first 15 minutes of every meeting must be spent with the buyers trying the brain exercises themselves. Oh, when they heard this, the retailers hated the idea. They are disgusted. But they had no choice, so they started playing. And we could only wait to see how they would react. And how did they respond? Well, at this point, I think I will take a risk and see if we can reproduce those first reactions right here on stage. In order to do that, I'd like to introduce Bill Trinan from Nintendo of America's localization team, a person who has spent months with the brain age. He'll walk us through a demonstration and invite a few friends.
I need a microphone here. There we go. Good morning. We do have some fun festivities planned with this today, but before we get started, I would like to take a quick little walkthrough of the game and show you what Brain Age is all about. Now, we just finished localization of the production version of Brain Age, Train Your Brain in Minutes a Day. And as Mr. Iwata just explained, it's not really a game. It's more of an interactive training program. Despite this, it's actually really fun, but probably not in the conventional way that you're all used to. So I'd like to start by doing just a quick run through here. There are several different modes, as you can see on this menu screen. The first is Quick Play. Quick Play is really designed for people like you, people who are gamers, people who develop games, who go out and buy this software, they're playing it on their DS, and then they want to show it to people who don't normally play games. And what this allows you to do is you have a quick brain age check, which will allow you to kind of demonstrate how the brain age check function works in the game, some quick training programs to allow people to sample it, and some quick Sudoku. And I'll talk more about all of this in just a moment. But the idea is that this is there for people who are familiar with games to try to show this software off to people who don't normally interact with video game systems. Now, the meat of brain training is in daily training. There's 4 different data files, and what that allows is it allows for 4 different people to use one piece of software. And in doing so, you're able to track your own brain progress, but also compare it to other people using the same game card as you. We'll start with my data, which you can see my brain age is 48. Hopefully, I don't look that old because I'm really not. In the main mode here, we've got some different options. You've got your brain age check. The way the brain age check functions is that you'll run through a series of 3 different mental exercises, and these are drawn randomly. There's a kind of a collection of them that they're drawn from. And then each exercise, your performance on it, will determine how the game evaluates your brain age according to the studies and research of Dr. Kawashima. The second mode is training. Training is really where the bulk of the program is, because obviously your objective here is to get the lowest brain age that you possibly can. And to do so, you go through these different training exercises. And we have some that range from calculations times 20. We'll demonstrate this later on stage. These are just simple calculations that you try to do very rapidly. Reading aloud kind of checks how fast you're able to read out loud, and it evaluates your brain in that sense. Things like syllable count, head count, and this one called low to high, which I'll show you very quickly. You'll see here that a series of numbers will flash on screen in location. I have to memorize the location and the order of these numbers, low to high, and then touch the squares in that same order, 2, 5, 7, 10. As I get more right, it gets harder. So 3, 6, 7, 9, 10. We're getting more and more of these. 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. You guys keeping up with me? 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 10. These are all randomly generated, by the way. So, 2, 3. Oh, let's tell you what. Why don't we back out of that before I get in over my head? Now, the next option here is the graphs, and this is really where you want to go to check your progress. As you can see here, when I first started playing the production version just over a week ago, my brain age wasn't so hot. It was at 73. We saw a big jump. that kind of motivated me to really do some exercises. After that big jump, I kind of slacked off a little bit over the weekend. It didn't do so hot. But you'll notice here, when I got down to the GDC, my brain age actually kind of plummeted. And I think, through scientific research, of course, I've deduced that while the sessions here at GDC are great for simulating your brain, the extracurricular activities really aren't. So you can also track your graphs for all the different individual activities. On top of this, for the US version, we've added a very robust Sudoku program. Are any of you out there Sudoku fans? There's over 100 Sudoku puzzles in here, which, as you're probably aware of, can mean up to 100 hours of gameplay, depending on how good you are at the puzzles. But we do have, let me just give you a very quick illustration of it, how it works. Obviously, the game itself takes really good advantage of the DS technology and the functionality of the system. We've got handwriting recognition. You can write little memos. It's very simple. If you don't know what number goes where, you've also got the ability to just write in a number, and it'll tell you whether or not you're right. You can turn that function on or off. It's really a great, very robust program. If you're a fan of Sudoku, I think you're going to love it. So with that, I'd like to actually invite some people up on stage to, as Mr. Iwata suggested, try to recreate the actual results that we had in Japan when we first showed the game off to people. And so I would like to invite a few friends. We have, first of all, Mr. Jamil Moladina, the director of the GDC. Jamil? Go ahead and stand right back here, Jamil.
Okay.
We also have a face that may be familiar to a lot of you from G4 TV, Jeff Keighley. Thank you, Jeff. And finally, we're very fortunate to have one of the great creative minds in video games to join us here on stage today. I'm very thrilled to have the opportunity to try to prove I'm smarter than him. I'd like to welcome to the stage Mr. Will Wright, ladies and gentlemen.
We have to compete with you.
Now, with the exception of me, these guys haven't actually played the game before. So what we'll do is we'll stand here. When I count down to 3, we'll walk up and hit the button. And actually, let me get mine set up really quickly here.
Oh, sure.
Oh
yeah, you get the stuff.
No, you guys are all set up, so don't worry about that. But what we're going to see here is we're going to see a series of 20 simple arithmetic problems. Addition, subtraction, multiplication. And so the idea is we'll see how fast we can answer these questions. And depending on how fast we can answer them, yes, correctly, that will the game will then evaluate approximately how old your brain is. So, and we'll do 2 rounds, because obviously the idea is we want to try to improve brain age over time. So we'll see how this goes. Yes, we'll see it up here, for everybody. So, great. Should be a lot of fun. Is everybody ready?
No.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Did you do this? Ooh. Is it over? Oh, we're still competing. Oh.
Whoa.
Okay. Hey, much younger than I am.
Wow.
Bad.
Okay. Well, looks like
Quicker.
that's great. Yeah. I think this is great though because Jeff has an opportunity to really improve.
Return, exactly.
Really improve his brain age here.
Stuck on the first one. It's all.
So,
Doing the extracurricular activities.
yes.
20 years old.
All right, so let's go ahead and we'll touch the more icon. Yeah, that was.
Wow.
Yeah. You keep touching this green
One more
icon in the
time.
top right corner until we get
More.
back to the quick play menu. And then touch quick play and then quick brain age check. We can do this again. And I'll give you all a hint. You know, it uses handwriting recognition, so to make sure that you get that it really is recognizing your handwriting. If you use more of the touch screen, you write larger numbers, you're going to have a better recognition.
Quick range. Okay. Quick
Just
range
a-
check, right?
Yes, quick brain age check. Is,
right.
is everybody ready?
Yep.
Ready.
All right. Now let's see if we can do this again. All right.
Okay.
Let's go. 3. Oh, you go
wait,
ahead.
oh.
There we go.
Are we all
Going?
Yeah,
I know how to.
All right.
Oh, yeah. He's getting closer.
Look at that. It looks like everybody but me managed to do better, and I think I'm apparently getting dumber by the minute. So,
Really?
well, thank you very much for joining us on
twice.
stage. I hope that
I
was
enjoyed that.
Thanks a lot, Will, Jeff, Neil. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Mr. Iwata.
Thank you, Bill. Bill, Jeff, and Jamil. I think we have now discovered people who are determined to improve their brain age. And of course, that is the secret appeal of this game. Let me add one more note to this story. Those first retailers, after playing the first game, agreed to buy a total of 70,000 units, which was still more than our domestic sales team expected. But I was not satisfied with that number. And between the launch of the first game and the second, you could see a disruption of the market occurring across Japan. Something had changed. New people were playing. 7 months later, we returned with the samples of the second brain age game. This time, no demonstrations were needed. The retailers quickly placed orders for 850,000 games. And even that turned out not to be enough. It recorded the biggest first week sales for any DS game ever. As of right now, the 3 brain games, including Big Brain Academy, have sold more than 5 million copies in Japan alone. The moral of this story is pretty clear. If you want to succeed in game development, you need to follow 2 simple rules. First, listen to your board of directors. And second, listen to your chief financial officer. The development of this game came from our belief that people wanted something new. In this case, that game took the form of a treadmill for the mind. But we also learned that the only real way to demonstrate the appeal of these games is to have people actually play them. At Nintendo in Japan, we had employees take the game home and show it to family and friends, especially people who weren't game players. Quite a few of our employees were surprised that their parents and wives, who never showed any interest in gaming, were suddenly playing this game every day. That helps build buzz. So I decided that the same thing might work here in America, and that the best time to start is right now. So when we are finished this morning, I thought you should test your own brain age to play yourself, to show it to a friend or even your parents, even if they have never played games. So, as you leave my keynote address, please take a copy with you as a gift from Nintendo. Please only take one and understand that the games are only available to pick up when we finish today. The second story I want to share with you involves a disruption of a different sort. Not only taking a different approach to a new technology, but also finding a way to make it attractive to everyone and thereby expand overall audience. The topic was constructing the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. Many of you know that we have been experimenting with networks since the 1980s. Back then, you could use your NES in Japan to trade stocks. We kept working, but never thought the time was right to introduce a game network until Nintendo DS. In 2004, we began considering Wi-Fi game. From the start, we had several challenges. First, we knew that both Animal Crossing and Mario Kart would be arriving on the DS the next year, and we wanted them to feature Wi-Fi play. That made the development timetable very short. Secondly, I insisted that our Wi-Fi interface be seamless. I wanted connecting to someone around the world to be as easy as connecting to someone playing next to you in the same room. As you know, this creates its own problems because normally making things easier for players makes things harder for developers. But the most difficult aspect was deciding who players would be able to connect with. Online gaming normally belongs to the most aggressive players, and they can be a very vocal group. For the casual player, these kinds of interaction can be very intimidating. I believe if we cater to only this very vocal group of hardcore players, we could never truly expand the audience. Originally, we thought Wi-Fi should be set up as a kind of social network, almost a gameplay version of MySpace. In Japan, we initially referred to the Wi-Fi system as Project House Party. We had in mind the comfort of inviting friends over to play in your own home. Well, at Nintendo of America, this name was not very popular. They told us that this sounded like what you called a Tupperware party. No matter what we called it, I believe the experience must be easy and fun. What did I mean by easy? It's simple to connect a game on DS locally when you are sitting in a room with your friends. It should be just as easy to find those friends and play with them, even if they are thousands of miles away. But what is fun? That depends on the player. You may want to play Mario Kart only with people you know, or you may find it more fun to try to defeat total strangers. Sometimes the choice will be determined by the nature of the game. No one playing Animal Crossing wants someone to come in, cut down all their trees, and trash their town. What was important to me was that players have the choice, the freedom to choose which way to play. For developers, easy and fun doesn't mean the work will be easy or fun. there were many barriers overcome. And my colleague, Mr. Takao Ohara, will share those stories with you later here at the GDC. In the end, it is the freedom of choice, I believe, that has made the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection so successful. To date, we have surpassed 1 million unique players, totaling more than 29 million play sessions. This is only 18 weeks of availability. We reached 1 million players almost 5 times as fast as the Xbox Live service, which also offered free connections when it began. It took them 20 months to reach 1 million different users. Of course, this has made our Wi-Fi development team very happy, as you can see. What you cannot see is that sign they are holding up, a message to all of you. So let me show you what it said. We love the GDC. They wanted to come, but I told them, sorry, no, but I did promise at least I would bring their picture. As you know, this week we added a new wrinkle to the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. Voice over Internet Protocol arrived with Metroid Prime Hunters. It introduced a new level of fun. At first, I thought you might like to see a Wi-Fi demonstration of the game. But I know Wi-Fi is nothing new for you. In fact, I imagine many of you have already played Mario Kart DS wirelessly and seamlessly. Instead, I think the true appeal of the game is seen best if we hold our own 4-player battle right up here on stage. Again, I'd like to invite Bill Trinan to come back on stage to get the battle underway.
So as Mr. Iwata mentioned, Metroid Prime Hunters just released this week for Nintendo DS. It's the latest installment in the Metroid Prime series of 3D first-person games. And it's really amazing the way that Nintendo software technology is really pushing the hardware to do new things and taking advantage of all the functionality of the Nintendo DS. And the other thing that's really amazing is that because of the touchscreen on the Nintendo DS, this is really the first time that a console first-person shooter or a handheld first-person shooter has had control that is as close to the PC style of mouse and keyboard control that we've ever seen. And so we'd like to demonstrate that for people tonight, or this morning, by inviting some friends from the development team up on stage, which means I'm probably going to get punished. But so I'd like to invite Wi-Fi game designer Wing Cho. Art director Mike Harrington, and engineer Max Schlegor. So if you notice that we've got a designer, an art guy, a programmer, and some guy at Yahoo that does translation. So it should be pretty fun to see who really is the best gamer. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to get destroyed since they actually made the game. But and I also kind of have to explain how it works while we're playing. But why don't we go ahead and step up and get the match started. We start off here on the character selection screen. All of your menu selections, again, are handled using the touch screen and the stylus. So it's very simple and intuitive. And once everybody chooses their characters, we can start the match. So again, as I mentioned, it is very similar to PC-style control. You're using the touch screen for your aiming. And then you're moving, strafing side to side, front to back with the plus control pad. You shoot with the L button, and it appears I'm already being shot at. And you can jump by double tapping on the touch screen. Now, as you can see, graphically, this game is extremely impressive for the Nintendo DS. They're really pushing the hardware, and I'm the first one to die. Now, of course, there's more to the gameplay than just shooting. There's some different types of weaponry you can get. This is some new weapon. And the nice thing is that the pickups, they have what are called affinity weapons, where certain characters are going to be better at using certain weapons. And that really adds into the strategy of the game in terms of, choosing your character, deciding which weapon you want to use, and finding the weapon that's most effective against other characters. And they went to a lot of trouble to really maintain a very good balance of play control through this. You've also got your missiles, which you can access by touching the touch screen there, tapping on this icon right here, which you can then use to try to blow people up. Let's see if I can... Uh-oh. You've also got, of course, the alt forms. Samus's alt form is the morph ball, which you can then use bombs to drop bombs and try to hit people with those. Each of the hunters has a unique alt form, ranging from anything from insects that crawl around the stage to kind of giant boulder-like things that roll around and then lash out at you. So it's really interesting, the types of control and the types of attacks that they've input into the game. And there I go again. I swear in all the rehearsals I was doing much better. So as you can see, it's a really exciting multiplayer game. The other thing that NST has done, put a tremendous amount of effort into, is making sure that the local wireless multiplayer is the same experience that you get when you go on Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. There's no difference between the multiplayer. And they've really done an excellent job of pulling this off. They've got a very seamless and kind of a nice smooth frame rate here as well. But the other thing they've done is they've implemented a lot of the types of Wi-Fi internet tracking that you would expect from a standard online game in terms of your win ratio, your kill count, your headshots, and all of that can be tracked online via your Wi-Fi play and the NintendoWiFi.com website. So if you are a fan of first-person shooters or a developer of first-person shooters, I think you really owe it to yourself to pick up this game, check it out, and see the different things that they've been able to do on the Nintendo DS. And as I predicted, congratulations, Wing, Mike, Max, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. I know I am much better watching this game than playing it. When we talk about expanding the market to new players, many times this means new kinds of software. But certainly not always. I hope that Metroid Prime Hunters shows we are not turning our backs on the kind of games that current core players already love. We will serve all tastes. And new Tetris DS is something even your grandmother will enjoy. On the other hand, you can compete head-to-head with the 9 different people on a local network or 3 others via Wi-Fi. We are also going to bring our first all-new Super Mario Bros. Game to the DS in a matter of a few weeks. For those of you who have been waiting for the next great Mario game, this is for you. And because you are all such a game fans, I've decided to reveal one more brand new adventure for you today. The Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass is designed exclusively for the Nintendo DS. It will launch later this year. It's a product of Mr. Aonuma and his team that has created most of the Zelda hits in the past. You'll be seeing and playing Zelda both on DS and GameCube at E3. The third story I have to share is the answer to a question people ask me all the time. How did we get the idea for the Revolution Freehand controller? Well, we started out with a very simple question. Why is it that anyone feels comfortable picking up a remote control for a TV? But many people are afraid to even touch the controller for a video game system. This is our starting point. Our first controller meeting began early 2004, and from that initial thought, we added two other requirements. First, the controller must be wireless. We need to give players freedom to move. And second, the look of the controller had to be simple, non-threatening. But of course, at the same time, I had to be sophisticated enough to serve the needs of complex games. And yes, we also wanted to be revolutionary. Finding an answer to all of this was not easy. For more than 6 months, two people at NCL did nothing but produce sketch after sketch with new ideas. Each sketch caused more discussion, and the discussion led us to create dozens of prototype designs. In all, about 15 people were involved trying to figure out an answer. At the same time, I was considering technologies which would incorporate a direct pointing device, something that would show direct visual contact between the controller and the screen. In fact, many good ideas were floating around, but nothing yet felt revolutionary. Early last year, a young team leader of the controller development group came up with a disruptive idea. What if you could play with just one hand? Mr. Miyamoto quickly imagined a small, simple wireless device. That fascinated us, but we realized an immediate problem. Considering our plans, how would we allow backward compatibility to all the previous Nintendo games that required two-hand control? Again, Mr. Miyamoto had an answer. Make the small wireless controller detachable from a larger traditional controller, both using the same wireless interface. This sounded good, but when we shared the idea with our Metroid Prime producers, they objected. They said their game would not work with what we invented. But they added another idea. Why not keep the simple one-hand controller, but also add another device for the other hand if the game required it? Something like a nunchak device. We think this is something that will entirely change first-person shooter games. By separately using the joysticks device to control position and the direct pointing device to target enemies, the experience truly feels more intuitive. Now, we really went to work. There were dozens of models and prototypes fabricated until we came up with the final result. And what did it look like? Well, it looked exactly like the same TV remote control that we first imagined more than a year earlier. Sometimes ideas are like good wine. They just need time. After all, the design and mock-ups, we were happy with the final result. It met our goals. It was wireless. It was inviting to new players. It offered something brand new for core players. And it was also a new interface. We could offer every player a part of the basic hardware package. But it also represented something else. As you can imagine, this was a very expensive process, not only in terms of the R&D cost, but also the manufacturing expense of producing such an elaborate control system and including it as a part of every hardware purchase. While some people put their money on the screen, but we decided to spend hours on the game experience. It is an investment in actual market disruption. Not simply to improve the market, but disrupt it. We believe a truly new kind of game entertainment will not be realized unless there is a new way to connect a player to his game. New is good, but there also is an appetite for old. For young players, classic games are brand new. For others, they are a way to feel young again. After we announced the virtual console concept for Revolution last year, many people asked me if only games for Nintendo systems would be available. Today, I have a better answer. I can announce that games specifically developed for the Sega Genesis and Hudson games made for the TurboGrafx 16 console they developed with NEC will also be available for Nintendo Revolution via Virtual Console. Between them, these systems built a library of more than 1,000 different games. Of course, not all of them will be available, but the best of them will. Thank you for listening to my stories this morning. However, the most important story of all is still to be told. I hope all of you, the creative force of our industry, will help us write it. It is a story of how disruption will help every one of us overcome the growing barriers to come to game development. We know what the main barrier is: cost. There is one dominant business model for our industry. Publishers work backwards from a console game at retail that sells for $50 or now even $60. To compete at that level, games must be longer, larger, and more complex. That requires bigger development teams. Success is more likely if a strong license is acquired. But even then, huge amounts of money are needed to market that game to a mass audience. It's understandable that many publishers, in order to reduce risk, feel most comfortable relying on sequels to already successful high-budget games. But as a result, our business is beginning to resemble a bookstore when you can only buy expensive full sets of encyclopedias. No romance novels, no paperbacks, no magazines. In our business, too often people with a fresh idea don't have a chance. I believe if Tetris were presented today, here is what the producer would be told. Go back, give me more levels, give me better graphics, give me cinematics, and you are probably going to need a movie license to sell that idea to the public. the producers would go away dejected, and today Tetris might never be made. Nintendo understands the dominant business model. We work with it every day. And future Zeldas and Marios and Metroids are going to be bigger masterpieces than ever before. But this does not have to be the only business model. We want to help you create a new one. One where your simple Tetris will be made. With Nintendo Revolution, we offer a combination of opportunities that simply can't be matched. Our controllers allows for every existing form of game to take on the new characters. It allows for game creation that is not dependent just the size of the development budget. I consider our virtual console concept the video game version of Apple's iTunes Music Store. Since I first announced the virtual console concept last year at E3, other people have become very interested in digital downloads. Others will offer such a service, but it will not be the same. Because for us, this is not just a new business opportunity. For us, this is a true innovation, true disruption. It is a part of our DNA. The digital download process will bring new games to the widest possible audience of new players, young people, older people, even those who never played video games before. When I think on what faces of all of us right now, I imagine what it must have been like for the explorers who first set foot on a new continent. For them, it was impossible to imagine all the adventure that lay ahead. Our adventure is still ahead of us. Nintendo is committed to creating an environment where all of your work can prosper. I began today saying that disruption is not just a strategy for Nintendo. Yes, we have already disrupted handheld, and it worked. Yes, we have already disrupted Wi-Fi, and it worked. And we disrupted the very definition of a game, and that is working too. In a few weeks, you will better understand how to disrupt console gaming. We will play and we will see. At Nintendo, we do not run from risk. We run to it. We are taking the risk to move beyond current boundaries. It should be our goal, each of us, to reach the new players as well as the current players. Our goal, to show them surprise. Our reward, to convince them that above all, video games are meant to be just one thing: fun. Fun for everyone. Thank you again so much for inviting me.